Hello, my name is Michael Rice, and I will be discussing Chapter 19, Sporting Goods and Licensed Products Industry. In this video, I will be covering the history as well as discussing some of the people that shared an important role in modernizing these companies. I will be discussing the format as well as the challenging issues that this business requires. And also, I will be covering some of the career implications for myself as well. Let's get started. We start off with the history of sporting goods and licensed product. Today, both of these sales produce billions of dollars in revenue and are the source for sports organizations worldwide. This is important because many of these sport organizations and big franchises lean towards sporting goods and licensed product industry because it creates a big revenue for them and also generates revenues for contracts, and they bring in this which will create sponsorships for these types of teams, which will allow them to create more money. These two areas are even more significant nowadays than back then. For example, RA brought up it can lead to sponsorships and also lead to more income for fans or sports teams. Hardy, which was a sports analyst for both of these fields, defined sporting goods as the physical objects necessarily for the game. This means that all the stuff that you need to play the game properly and safely. He also goes on to define licensed objects as the items of clothing or team apparel that many of these companies sell that have logos or represent the university if it's college sports that generate big bucks. Innovation in this industry first jumped off in 1811. The first person I will discuss is George Tryon, who was a gunman, and he got this up and running by creating the statue carvings for many people interested in sports. Then later he expanded and entered the fishing tackle business and quickly took over as the top sporting goods company east of the Mississippi River. This revolutionized the industry and created a blueprint for others to come, which was really important. The next person I will talk about is Michael Phelan and John Brunswick. This came in the 1840s and 50s, and what they did was they created items for billiards and the equipment for pool tables that you see today. In 1884, Michael and John Brunswick combined, and they had merged to both their companies and products, and together they brought in $1.5 million of revenue, which was significantly larger than all the other competitors combined. Next, I'm going to talk about George Albert Spalding, and he came on the scene like never before and really modernized the sporting good industry, what we see today. Spalding was a baseball player back in the 1800s for the Chicago White Stockings, and he basically started this company with a loan of $800. Now, the thing that separated Albert Spalding from the other pioneers in this industry was he thought up his reputation and his connections through baseball, which led him to be more credible and basically gave others more of a blueprint and more stuff. He used his connections to make sporting goods like baseballs, golf clubs, wrestling gear, football gear, and bikes. And he would use the thing that separated them was he had technology and others didn't have access to that sort of technology at that time. So he already was advanced and ahead of the pack. in in 1980s to 90s. That's when the heavy hitters like Nike and Reebok came on the scene. In 1980, Nike brought out $269 million and replaced Adidas, which was the leading shoe company at that time, and they just jumped them. Then Reebok ended up jumping Nike in shoes and sporting goods, but that was until 1986 when Nike came out and aired their first Air Jordan commercial in the shoes. The shoes came out came out in 1986, and they sold for roughly $65 as the first Air Jordans to come out and made a big hit. By 1990s, this allowed Nike to be a $2 billion company and the top of their field. By 2009, Nike had reached $19.1 billion in net sales. Adidas tried to counter Nike and slow their roll in 2005 by purchasing Reebok for $3.8 billion, by doing this gave them leeway so that they could begin to franchise and operate and work with NFL and the NBA. This allowed them to create their jerseys and other warm-ups and gear for them. This showed that this business is all about competition and steady moving forward in the industry. It's evident that you have to spend money to make money, and Adidas clearly demonstrated that by purchasing Reebok. Now I begin to talk about the format. The Sporting Goods Manufacturers Association is an industry trade association that breaks down sporting goods into multiple segments. There's 3 segments that make this up, and that's sporting goods equipment, athletic footwear, and sport teams apparel. By splitting these up, it allowed more focus on each task and at a higher efficiency rate, and made it easier for the consumer. Now, challenging roles that this field may face. One challenging issue for these industries is the rapid growth of technology. There's always going to be new innovations and new schemes of marketing. Having to compete with all these big companies is important to stay ahead of the curve, and it's the first to implement the new advances in sport gears and apparel. Some effects that this issue may have is that if you're not constantly advancing or creating new stuff, then you're going to get left behind, and that's just going to result in low sales and potentially put you out of business if you're that far behind. You don't want to be in the back of the pack. Career implications for myself. The sporting goods side necessarily doesn't affect me so much, because really what I want to get into is sports marketing for pro teams, and this has always been a great goal of mine, and I'd like to make it happen. So the sporting goods side really doesn't affect me much, but the licensing product does, because you could sway things to your side by that type of stuff that will generate more hype and more profit based on how you go about it. These two relate because you can use products and trends in a way to scheme towards marketing and promoting for high-level organizations, which is important because, say for example, if fans see all the neat gear and stuff that the teams are wearing, they're more likely to come to games, watch them on television, and buy their apparel. Take Oregon for example. Oregon has all those sweet, unique jerseys and schemes that are done by Nike, and now everybody wants to buy Oregon jerseys because they have so many different unique color schemes and stuff that just makes it more funner to watch them and represent their gear. I'm forever a Buckeye fan, so you won't catch me wearing any Oregon gear. But in conclusion, sporting goods and licensing products has come a long way, and you could thank the founders for that.